Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand the breath.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Racially Speaking. I'm your host, David Phipps, and it's great to be back as always. Also joining me today, man, as he often does lately, which is such a privilege, I got my guy from Duluth, Georgia. I mean, he used to reside right down the road from me, but I got Pastor Pastor Jefferson Jones back with me. What's going on, my brother?
What's up, man?
You good?
It's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm good. All things considered.
All things considered. Yes. It's been a little while, but I appreciate you making some time to come back on Racially Speaking. I know the listeners always enjoy hearing from you. Look, man, I don't want to waste any time. Let's just jump in, but real quick. Oh, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Racially Speaking, I don't think we've ever talked about how you came up with the title. Just like real quick, like 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with that title?
I have not broken it down in a long time. I think I have maybe at least once in the past. But yeah, man, on the spot. No, that's easy. Well, one, for those of you who don't know, when you start podcasts, you try to come up with a title that's also not taken. So one, it's not taken. I really felt like hopefully you guys pick up on what I'm doing. I felt called to make this conversation about race. Of course, when I started, I think in January, it'll be about 5 years. So obviously right around COVID 2020 and all that. I knew that I wanted to talk about racial justice, and I knew I wanted to occupy the space of education and faith and family type thing, but I also didn't want to act like I could talk about anything or everything, because I don't think that's wise. I wanted to, talk about what I know, not that I'm an expert about everything I've talked about on here, which is why I bring people on. But I knew I was supposed to talk about race, and I didn't want to compromise that. And to me, that was where the overwhelming calling to do this, whether it's the podcast or not, but I just felt an overwhelming clarity on whatever I'm doing from here on out, maybe for the rest of my life. I felt like I understood the need to talk about racial justice or injustice, for that matter. And I've been in, quote unquote professional or vocational ministry for my whole adult post-college life. And I've been teaching in college setting. And so as much as I can be, that's, quote unquote my expertise. So I try and talk about what I know and feel called to, and I'll talk to other people about the other stuff. But also, as you know, Pastor JJ, race, I think, informs really everything. And so a lot of different things do come up.
Ooh, that's a heavy little bar right there.
There you go. So racially speaking, I didn't want to take race out of anything, but I didn't want to throw other stuff in there that was not, in my wheelhouse. And then I also really felt like I wanted to make this accessible to Christians, as faith. My Christian faith is very prominent in all these conversations for the most part, but also wanted to be accessible to the many friends I have and colleagues I have that aren't Christians, don't believe in Jesus, but racial justice and injustice is still a big conversation outside the Christian space too. And so I wanted to have a good public witness to others as well. So yeah, thanks for asking. That's kind of really it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
Yeah. Hey man, but that is a fantastic transition. So look, as you guys listen to this, you guys can imagine that some of the topics we might bring up and are going to talk about. What I want to say off the bat is Pastor JJ and I, we've talked briefly before even hitting record and kind of planning this time loosely. But what I don't want to do is double, triple, quadruple up on all of the content that is out there, kind of processing and litigating the specific legacy of the late Charlie Kirk. So I'll just say that at the beginning, that I'm not sidestepping it because I think that, or that because we're afraid to talk about it, or for any reason other than we think we want to move forward with some of the racially speaking specific topics that have been brought up even more to the forefront since his tragic murder.
Right.
And I hope if you've been listening to this podcast at all, or you know me and or Pastor JJ, that you know that we abhor and just what's the word? Not disown, but we hate the violence, man. We hate the political violence. It does not matter what we think about Charlie Kirk or any human being, like, for that matter. Like, what happened, I'll just say it. Should go without saying, but man, terrible, horrible. Heart goes out to him, his family, everyone hurting. Just
we condemn
absolutely
acts
despicable.
of violence.
Yes,
It's just
horrible,
it's crazy,
horrible. Okay, I think that's kind of sets us up good pleasantries as we kind of enter into this. So, of course, since the murder of Charlie Kirk, and you can also touch some on just even this 2025, really. But a lot of issues have been brought up as kind of going back and forth. People have been, everyone in the world, but really in America, have been litigating the legacy of Charlie Kirk. One end of the spectrum, so two extreme ends, right? Some people have gone as far as to celebrate his killing and death. Horrible, despicable. That ain't us. That's not the right way, fam. Terrible stuff. Do not condone that whatsoever. Other side of the extreme, I'd say, are my hero died, especially, in the Christian world. Many Christians saying, our great hero of the faith was lost. Let's erect a statue and have a national holiday implemented about him. All stuff. At least one of those things has already been done. Maybe both those things. And then I think most people obviously fall somewhere in the middle, going back and forth with, well, we said this, and this, that's problematic, but he also did this, and this. It's, that's what a great Christian man would do. And I was taken back by how much this discourse and conversation took off since his murder. I was familiar with Charlie Kirk, wasn't a devout follower, probably just to most of you for some obvious reasons, but I knew of him, followed some of his content. And look, I'll just say, I just viewed him. This isn't even really about whether or not I agreed with him or not, but I just viewed him as, he's a right-wing conservative pundit, and that's just objectively what he is. Like, not for better or for worse, just like, that's what he is. I thought everyone just knew that, whether you agreed with him or not.
Right.
So after his murder, I was just struck by, one, how many people from both sides of the aisle posted about him, with emotional posts. And then, of course, I personally was very struck by how many people heralded him as their or one of their heroes of the Christian faith.
Or the M word.
Yeah. Wait, what's the M word?
Martyr.
I was thrown off by that for a second. For some reason, I went to MLK, because I've also seen that modern day MLK.
And that's another part. This, conflating him with the life of Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like,
yep. I might come back to that, Pastor JJ.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Look, let's start here. Pastor JJ, emphasis on pastor. Okay. Can you tell us what does the Bible say about Christian nationalism? And maybe we should define it, because I'm seeing more and more people that simply want a definition of what we mean. So how do we define Christian nationalism? What does the Bible say about it? And how are Christians supposed to navigate our faith relationally and politically? So really easy question.
So what I want to do, just a quick little nugget about me, and this is funny because I'm gonna stay on the question, but I have to share this, that when I'm engaging with people in conversation, um, I if someone has a rebuttal or a pushback on a statement or something that I post, I will always typically ask them. One of my follow ups is, would you mind sharing some of the books that you've read, some research or some sources that you could point me in so I can understand like your knowledge base? And then people will see that as me deflecting. And it's not a deflection. It is a legitimate question that I have so that I know how to approach you in conversation.
Yeah.
And typically, no one ever can tell me a book that they have read that deals with racism, white supremacy, slavery, Christian nationalism. Nobody ever drops books. But anyway, so I say all that to say, I want to start with a couple of quotes of definitions and explanations of specifically white Christian nationalism, because I really think we need to understand that there isn't really Christian nationalism without white being there.
Okay.
And so two gentlemen, Philip Gorski and Samuel Perry, and for my listeners, here's the book, The Flag and the Cross, White Christian Nationalism and the Threat to American Democracy. That's the name of the book. So they say in this book a couple of things. First, white Christian nationalism is our term for the ethno-traditionalism among many white Americans that conflates racial, religious, and national identity and pines for cultural and political power, that demographic and cultural shifts have increasingly threatened. The term Christian in white Christian nationalism is often far more akin to a dog whistle that calls out to an aggrieved tribe than a description of the content of one's faith. And so when we talk about, there's another quote I want to share quickly, but when we talk about Christian nationalism, we have to consider the word syncretism. And syncretism leans into the blending of other traditions, other practices into one's faith. For example, we have the Judaizers in the New Testament that would often come up against the Galatians and come up against the new converts that Paul warned against, because these were Jews who had come into the kingdom of God as Christians, but they were telling Galatians and other believers that, yeah, you could be a Christian and you still need to practice these Jewish customs. You still need to practice these things from the old covenant in order to be legit.
Yeah.
So Christian nationalism, now we have this syncretism. It is a distortion of Christianity. It isn't even Christianity. It is this distortion, and it is a blend. It is a smoothie of these traditional values, this American way, the flag, Confederate ideologies, and so many other things that blend in with nation into what it means to be Christian. And the two have been conflated to where to be Christian is to be American. And they're so intertwined that you can't see the separation. This last other quote, and then I'm gonna let you go. They also said this: white Christian nationalism is one of the oldest and most powerful currents in American politics. But until the insurrection, it was invisible to most Americans. It was invisible to most conservative white Christians because for decades it has been the water they swim in and the air they breathe. It was invisible to most secular progressives because they live in a bubble of their own in which white Christian nationalism seems fringe rather than mainstream.
The last part's interesting. To
Yeah.
the secular progressives.
Yeah. So when we're talking about this Christian nationalism, it is about it's almost to where the Christian identity is almost beneath or conjoined with national and political identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I understand it. I think that's right on in some simple terms, conflating being a Christian and your American national identity as having to coexist, not just potentially coexisting. Like it is that, and the belief that America should be a Christian nation, and that is a good thing, and that is even, to me, the worst part, which I actually want to ask you more about, is the belief that that is what is biblical and that should be the Christian agenda. And so I do think it's helpful to flesh this out, to play a little bit of devil's advocate. So for Christians, I've had some of these conversations and they've been helpful because I will say they've been helpful because it's helped me to humanize people that I pretty vehemently disagree with. But what I mean is, like, it's helped me to see, okay, like, we can have these conversations and certainly not hate each other, but we can also have these conversations. I can see why someone thinks what they think. They can see why I think what I think. But I do wonder, and I want to get to this a little bit later, what it looks like, what things we can agree to disagree on, and if there's things as Christians that we can't. Because I genuinely, in a couple spots where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. What I do want to say about what you just said, because I think some people listening might think this is, well, I'm not a extremist right wing crazy person. Like, oh, I've talked to a bunch of people that are like, yeah, I really don't like President Trump, but I either did vote for him or I just lean conservative, and I just didn't know what else to do, or I don't know what else to do. Like, I can't help it. So, like, even though all these, whatever, they might even agree with most of what I think, like, even though all these terrible things are happening, isn't the quote unquote Christian way. Like, if we're Christians, shouldn't we kind of think that everyone should be Christian and believe that that is what's best for them? Like, what is wrong with that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, not even an argumentative way, but I've just talked to a good amount of people that are like, isn't, like, what should we do then? Just not evangelize our faith at all? Like, wouldn't that be almost hypocritical of our Christian calling to share the gospel? Have you had those conversations at all? Like, what would you say to people like that? Because I think that's, like I said, a human question. One, I think I probably know what you would say, but I don't think that's a bad question, even though I personally am like, Christian nationalism is not it, like, prescribing that over people, but it is I think, a valid question versus being closed off.
Yeah. I think for one, the parties, when you think politics, the parties have been too simplified and too tunnel vision into specific issues that are they are incompatible with the character and the heart of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And they have insufficient funds in being able to uh, give provision to what God demands from his citizens. And so in that, we have these, one issue parties that have been these people who have been indoctrinated to believe that if you don't stand up against these one or two issues, then you can't be a Christian. I've even heard people say, well, if you're not a Republican, you're not a Christian.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, how you fall on that?
Yeah.
And so, and when it comes to, who one votes for, I think that people have taken they have now another conflation is that they've taken their kingdom Christian identity and conflated it with their vote.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so even if there are flaws in that leader, they will use scripture to justify their selection. But what happens there is that people are so biblically illiterate. I'm not shooting shots at nobody. I'm just saying what it is. That they don't understand what it means to be kingdom, and what it means to be a true follower of Jesus Christ. I mean, we could read the Sermon on the Mount and go through that and nail it. We could go through chapters in Isaiah about what a true fast is.
Yeah. No, I think that's right on. I think some of the disorienting part for me, and kind of like you said, I'm not shooting shots at anybody. I'm not trying to be condescending, but I just regularly in these types of conversations come back to, we can talk about logic, policy, Bible verses, but I keep coming back to such basic things that I feel like was meant for children. Like Jesus just consistently wanted to, Jesus spent so much time with children, talking to children, and using children as a metaphor. So it's really not condescending. I'm speaking to all of us, but isn't Scripture clear that when in doubt, love your neighbor, or love God and love your neighbor? I truly think that that's why he told us that. Like, if you're gonna do anything, love God and treat others well. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself. Isn't that what we tell our kids? Isn't that what they learn?
Isn't that what Jesus told them?
Yeah. And so I come to that because all these conversations just so often turn into all this policy talk. And I'm clearly not against talking about that stuff, but I'm just like, hold on. But now it just sounds like this is taking precedent over, do we not care how we're treating people? Because
guess what? The answer is no.
It's gotta be, or
they don't care,
or we're insane.
They don't care. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah,
because
so
here's the deal: if we're gonna look at this biblically, what did James say about works and faith and works?
Right. Faith that works is dead.
Right. Show me your works.
Yeah.
And I see your faith.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What your works look like tells me about your faith. And then Jesus said, John, how can you love a God that you can't see, but you can't, and you hate your brother that you do see, or you can't love your brother that you do see? It doesn't match up.
Mm-hmm.
James Baldwin said this. He said, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. And I know it sounds harsh, like saying that they don't care, but you judge a tree by its what?
Fruit.
How many times have you gone to an apple tree to get an orange?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, hey, I'm with you. I don't know if you mentioned this before we hit record or not, but we were talking about the Beatitudes, Matthew 5. I've been hanging out there a lot these last couple weeks to kind of get my bearings. So, I mean, there's a Sermon on the Mount, right? Jesus saying, if you guys aren't familiar with Beatitudes, Matthew chapter 5 in Scripture.
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are those when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So, I mean, obviously those last couple are tough because those are the ones that I think are selectively applied and taken out of context. I think some people might hear me say something like that and think, well, there you go, you're twisting it to have it be what you want it to be about. We don't need to necessarily go back and forth right now on what interpretation is correct on, okay, well, who's the righteous person and how we've been thinking about things the last couple of weeks. But I don't know, much like loving your neighbor, I feel like coming back to the Beatitudes and those, I think are just a great heart test, and I think that's the point of them. I think it's the outpouring of what you said in James. I see your works and I'll know your faith. Like, faith without works is dead. We're not saved by works or not saved by works, but it's a relationship. And if you got nothing springing out of you from your genuine faith, then, I think the natures what that is saying is it's okay for that to be questionable at that point. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you with knowing these definitions now, and even like taking it a step further. So, racially speaking, obviously the nature of a lot of my conversations get to race typically.
Yeah.
And it's not even because, even as you asked why I'd call this racially speaking, it's not because I'm obsessed and love talking about racism. It's, I feel called to speak about it, feel gifted in at least being able to facilitate a conversation on this topic. But I truly think it's not a one issue thing politically for me. It informs everything. And I think that's clear whether you're fighting racism or you're pro racism, because both sides know that it affects everything, and both sides make sure of that. So anyway, I say all that because as I've gotten into these conversations, one thing, as you won't be surprised, comes up, and this has been true these last couple of weeks, and it's been true all the way back to 2015 and 16 with talking about politics and stuff. I'd say, I think you'll agree, Pastor JJ, many politically right-wing Christians, let's just say, use the narrative that the broken home, specifically absentee Black fathers, is actually the cause of the Black community struggles, or any struggles the Black community has systemically and whatnot. One, would you say that there's any validity in that? Had to ask that at least. And what do you say to people that hold this belief? So again, the many right-wing Christians, maybe some of you guys listening don't know this, but a common talking point is many politically right-wing Christians use the narrative that the broken home, specifically the breakdown of the family and absentee Black fathers, is actually the cause of the Black community struggle, not systemic racism. Like that's what they say. And of course, like we said, we're not going to just sit here and litigate Charlie Kirk, but that is a hill never mind, I didn't mean to make a pun, but quite literally a hill, I say if he was alive, he'd say he'd die on. And also guys like a Larry Elder or a Tim Scott out of South Carolina, like Black politicians, that's been their mainstay, right? Like Black fathers leaving their families. We have evidence and statistics to show that is the cause of all their struggles. And seen plenty of quotes and videos from like a Larry Elder or even a Charlie Kirk, to be honest, saying essentially blaming the Black community for not accepting all the ways we solve racism now. And if they would just accept it, we could all move on. All right, that was a lot. What are you thinking, Pastor JJ?
I mean, it's a misleading narrative. It's one we're used to it. In fact, in national research, even in the CDC, it's shown actually that Black fathers are often more involved in their children's daily life, whether it's feeding, whether it's reading, whether it's playing with them. Uh, but then, fathers in any racial group, regardless, and this is, regardless of any racial group, this is whether they live with their children or not. So this is stereotype that's been painted of the absent father, black father. It's not supported by the evidence. And I even have friends who have studied this out deeper than I have and can refute these claims that the black father is missing from the home. I would say in general, fathers are missing from homes. That's that's in any ethnic group, right? And so to really get into this and to really understand why the picture of the black family looks the way that it does today, one of the trails that I've learned to do is to ask the question why, and then
why is this a thing, or why do people think it's a thing?
Or not just why do people or why people think it is because it is a narrative that has been embraced, and it is a narrative that has been painted by especially the Republican Party, to give that image of black man as no good, less than, irresponsible, thug, just going to be locked up, all of those things. But if we were to backtrack, in history, black families were deliberately torn apart.
Right. Well, we can't teach that anymore.
Exactly.
So I do run into that because it's so hard. It's so easy to bring up history, and it's so easy to see the clear path of how slavery still has residual effects today. But people are so turned off by that. That's extreme. That's extreme. That's extreme. And I even will do a solid and be like, okay, sure, I understand. Let's not even talk about that. And I'll give modern examples, and that's where conversations will end. Like, I think we might just end up not agreeing on what's actually racist and whatnot. So yeah, it sounds like you go as far as saying that these, because I'm honestly of the thought of even if these statistics seem disproportionate, let's say disproportionately black fathers are more absent than white fathers, I still wouldn't think that is the that's how wrong I think that belief is. But I I've seen plenty of stuff that's showing that it's not even, those statistics aren't true. That's, at least in my conversations, I even try and just concede as much as I possibly can to make a point. So I'm like, okay, great, let's say that's true. Have you had any thoughts or research on why that is not just, oh, I'm a black dad, I enjoy abandoning my family, it's in our DNA, which is what that narrative is so often and so clearly, like you said, put out there to illustrate, see, look, they don't value family. It's that right there. I'm not black. I know a lot of black people. I'm like, if I had to choose, hey, who do I think is the most familial centered culture that I know of, I'm like, I'm going with the black community. I'm just this is so so clearly put out there and believed by people not in proximity to black people or other non-white cultures. Because I'm like, it's
proximity,
just not. It is just not a thing. To say that an entire community, specifically your community, innately doesn't value family is just ridiculous. And it begs the question, okay, so the segue here is, what can we agree to disagree on? Because to me, I'm having trouble explaining to people, okay, that racists aren't the only, or racism isn't only people that are walking around belting out racial slurs and advocating for slavery, right? That's not you're not going to run into somebody like that, probably. And if you do, most of us know that that's a crazy person, I'm hoping.
Right.
Race, like how is something like what we just talked about, blaming the entire community for their own struggles in that way? How is that not racist? And then how I got to bring some of the Charlie Kirk stuff up, and the purpose isn't to demean his character in this conversation.
Just things he said.
The purpose is to litigate some of the things he said. I've had some conversations with people. It's like, okay, and again, have had some humanizing conversations because I've been made more aware of, like, man, you didn't know, or you don't know. You saw one version of him that was Christian evangelist, and it is what it is. But now that you have, like, wait, how are you still standing 10 toes down on some of this stuff? Not all of it. Like, I'm not saying it's a zero-sum game. I'm really not. But I'm saying, wait, but what are you saying is the rest of the context of some of these things he's saying? Like, what's going on here? How can you say Ketanji Jackson Brown, Michelle Obama don't have the brain processing power to understand what we're talking about here? Like, how, like, do you realize I'm having now to spend time trying to I have to choose whether or not I want to spend time trying to convince you that Ketanji Brown Jackson, Michelle Obama are smart. Like, do you know, like,
and highly,
like, yeah, it's like, it's
degreed.
not even kind of a comparison, and I have to sound like a condescending jerk when I even have to talk about how racist that is. And some of the pushback I've gotten is always talking about, just those 3 or 4 specific women he said in the quote. I'm like, one, no, it wasn't. He was saying that he named them as an example of Black women.
Examples, right?
Like, just look at the context of the whole quote if you guys want me to look at the whole quote.
So now tell you a little more about how my mind thinks, just where I go in my train of thought, is that slave owners and, slave masters would say that the slaves were happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had
in the conditions that they work.
Yeah.
How you figure that? Off. Because of the cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
They had to do something to deal with the fact that what they were doing was wrong and evil. So we got to figure out how to make this justifiable.
The light's going out again. Yeah.
So over generations, like, this stuff has been passed down, and it just comes up. It expresses itself in different ways. Dr. Jamar Tisby, he says that, racism doesn't go away. It just, I think he would say, it transforms.
Yeah. Adapts.
It adapts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find this conversation, I'm trying to put my light back in, harder and harder, just because of the whole just not being able to talk about certain things because it's divisive.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping you can help us out. Like, what do you, for fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, what can we agree to disagree on? And are there things that we can't really agree to disagree on? And move forward. And I think move forward, I mean, like, in a way that our relationship is not going to take a hit. I'm a big fan of psychological safety. Like, my light keeps going on. What's going on? I'll also have to be in the dark a little bit.
Yeah, I like that psychological safety.
Yeah, and I mean, I even got that from somebody that I was talking to. Was leaving their church and transitioning somewhere else, and that was kind of just really the only thing they were looking for. It's like, it wasn't even that they're leaving a place where they didn't feel like the gospel was queer. It's like they're leaving a place because they didn't feel psychologically safe. They didn't know where people stood in just politically charged atmosphere, and that's just a real thing. It's not just, I need to find a bubble that everyone agrees with me. It's like, no, I need to just find a place where I know people care about my dignity.
Even when we disagree.
And I think maybe we're hitting the nail on the head right there. Like, what is the difference? Like, what can we agree to disagree on and not agree to disagree on?
Right. And I want to add this statement. I was just thinking, like, and when you're, and knowing if I could be around you, if your disagreement deals with things, if the disagreement, if you're agreeing with things that affirm when people think that I'm less than as a human.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, it is about using first foundationally. First, I'm going to share this just as we're building this up, that there are three ways when you think about how we live, how we do life, when you think about Christianity, faith, Jesus. There's the first way is culture's way. And that's the world's way. That's the way the world does things. Then there's the second way, which is the church's way. All right. We're talking about the institute of the church, talking about people, denominations, and how they make their opinion or what they feel strong about dogma, and they turn their dogma into doctrine and put God on it. Then there's the third way, and that's the way of Jesus. Right? So what I'm doing as much as I can, as I'm living out this life, is teaching, living, ministering in a way that honors third way. And that's the way of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's good.
So using a hermeneutic of Jesus, right? We can agree to disagree on policies and methods, but we can't agree to disagree on the core values of God's kingdom, which is some of the things you've already said. Love of neighbor. God doesn't wiggle on that. There's no wiggle room with love of neighbor. Justice for the oppressed. And God has a whole lot to say about the oppressed in the Old Testament and the New. Human dignity. We can't disagree. I can't agree to disagree on that. Truthfulness and rejection of idolatry. So when the political positions cross those lines, it's not a matter of preference, but of discipleship, right? And so, we think about, I agree to disagree. The things that I can't, like, if I know if you can be in my circle or not, if you're choosing to agree to disagree on things that God said and that Jesus would support. What you're believing and thinking, does Jesus support those things? It's not enough to just say, is it in the Bible? Because slave masters and evangelists and ministers who preached said God said, but Jesus didn't approve.
You brought up a lot. I use kind of that example, and I use it regularly, but I used it in a couple conversations over these last couple weeks, and it was talking about the whole, honestly, the reception and view of the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Yes. And then I actually posted something about what I thought about his memorial and let's agree. It's kind of calling people out that were still insisting that all he wanted was to bring people together and to be remembered for his faith. And I even remembered some of the videos going around. I saw one where he was asked that, like, when you die, what do you want to be remembered for? And it was helpful because I felt like his answer was actually very genuine. I truly do. Like, I was like, man, that clip, like, that's great. Like, he sounds really down to earth, really cares. And for what it's worth, listeners, like, I believe he probably knew the Lord, like, as a Christian. I mean, I'm not in the business of doubting someone's salvation. I don't think we're supposed to do that.
Right.
We're judging his fruit and his public witness. And to me, that was interesting because I'm like, okay, there was a time and different points throughout, because I'm sure there's other clips like that where it does sound really genuine. So let's pretend for a second we're all on the same page. Like, yeah, that is all he wanted. And my questions were just, why was that what his funeral memorial service was. Like, why was it just a giant MAGA rally with further hate speech being spouted? Like, if those were all the people he was aligned with and are speaking at his memorial, it's not like a little tiny little party. It's like, this is it. Like, these are what we want to be etched in history, to be synonymous with his legacy. And then, of course, we got, the conversations of, well, there was worship and people got saved and there was revival there and all that kind of stuff. And so some people kept bringing that up to me. And I used that example, kind of what you just said. I was like, look, I think Jesus is clear. The scripture, like, he can and will do whatever he wants. He'll bring revival when and wherever he wants, in whatever ways he wants to. It doesn't mean that entire gathering is rooted in him. And I think that's super clear in something like during slavery. Like, just know, like, some little, I'm not a historian, like, far from it, but if you know the relationship between slave masters and slaves throughout history, it went from they're no more than animals and are not worth anything to, oh, maybe they're kind of human. We should evangelize to them. They're worth that as long as they're still slaves, because that's in the Bible. They should be slaves. And then progress maybe a little farther in different aspects. And so to me, I'm like, so I think probably some slaves became Christians because they're slave masters, but you're telling me that the reaction should be, all right, slaves and slave masters hold hands and let's just focus on Jesus. Let's not talk about, like, let's ignore this socioeconomic situation we're in, because Jesus, right? Like, that's all he cares about is heaven. We don't care about life now.
Your body.
And to me, people are not making that connection, and I'm trying to exist more and having conversations with meeting people where they're at who might disagree with this, but then I'm having trouble wading through the muddy line of, wait, but when are we just never going to agree here? And that's weighed on me, because I'm like, we got to agree. I maybe it's a curse I got. I don't. Maybe it's my curse. I don't know. Like, I can't shake the. Well, we just aren't ever going to see eye to eye on this. I'm like, I can't stomach it.
Yes, it's hard, and but it's a reality that I think people who understand a fuller fuller context of justice in the Bible and what it means beyond, I guess, the world's way of justice, or just like this Americanized justice. It's not a biblical justice, but people don't study, so people don't know. And when you as a person, when you don't study to know, and then even to know God deeper, it's like the God you see is the God you're going to get. We have a lot of here's what's happening now, going back all the way to the top with the white, I'm gonna continue to call it what it is, the white Christian nationalism, this distorted, deceptive version of Christianity. It has this image of God, this image of Christ, but it lacks the power of who Jesus really is. And what is happening is we have all these people running around thinking that they're proclaiming the name of Christ when they're really proclaiming something that is a false God. And so we're trying to convince inconvincible people to see something beyond their wounded sight. And there are people in different circles, just not just in this case, but people have blinders on, or their vision is blurred, or their depth perception is limited because of the wounds, because of this indoctrination that is there, and they cannot see beyond until they have some encounter with God, until they have an encounter with Jesus that brings healing to the blindedness, or they have an encounter with the Holy Spirit that does something to break that stronghold, is what it is. And you can't change those who don't want to change and those who don't realize that they need change. You can pray for them though, and set boundaries to maintain your what is it, to have psychological safety.
Yeah. I brought you on to be the hopeful one, so I'll be a little cynical. Do you ever feel, hopeless? And what I mean is, like, you brought up stuff like January 6th insurrections. So, and you use that offhandedly as saying, well, no one really understood how bad it was till that happened. I feel like I've had more of the stuff I've seen in my circles and conversations I haven't had a ton about that specifically, but I just see people either one, chalk it up, explain it away and say, that's not really what happened. Or just didn't follow it because it was too much. Or like most people, I just don't feel like think that was an actual thing, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Like I don't personally feel like the effects of that have really been that big because of a little bit of both sides, actually, of how much it's been politicized. And yeah, I don't know. Like I see that, I'm just like I've had people even this week tell me, like, legitimately make the case that, like, the left is, I'm not saying only one party is responsible for everything bad, but I'm saying that there's heavy evidence and it's really obvious that the left side of the aisle is responsible for the political violence. And I'm just like, and people ask me for like examples of like stuff that's happened. I'm like, I could just give you just that one, like that January 6th one, like just that one, and how that's been litigated. And like and so to me, when I hear questions like that, I'm just like, that's where psychological safety taps in. I'm just like, y'all, like, it doesn't really even matter if I give you examples, because if you are always going to say, well, that didn't happen, then it's pointless.
Sir, people want to use anything they can as a scapegoat to relieve them of the evilness and the brokenness and the woundedness of humanity. It's not a party issue. It's a people issue. So you asked the statement, or you asked about hope.
Yeah.
And so
thank you. Get us back there.
Yeah, my pastor was talking about hope and hopelessness. And he gave this idea. And I think my analogy for now is, I'll just be real basic. If my batteries die in my remote controller while I'm watching TV, I mean, I can hope that it will work to turn my TV on again, but guess what? It's not going to happen. No matter how much I hope in that remote to work, bro, they ain't going to turn that TV on. And so, but he was talking about healthy hopelessness.
Huh. Tell me more.
So healthy hopelessness is when you're engaging with, or you see people and the hope was there, like over time and situations, that there would be change. But over, experience with that person or those people, it always comes up short. So the healthy hopelessness is recognizing the reality that those people aren't going to change. And the only way that something will happen is if God intervenes. And even in the midst of that I'm still going to walk with God to do what he needs to do as I do my part. And then realizing, like, that just, for some people, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And coming to that reality.
Yeah. That's good. Healthy hopelessness. I think, I got to lean into that a little bit more.
Yeah, but that keeps me from like, I'm not even looking for you to, I'm good now because I know who you are. Like,
I think
ain't nothing happening over there.
No, I really mean it. That's a great term. I'm going to try and get into that space a lot more, because I think what I do is, if I'm not just doing great, I'm just all the way in the other. Like I would probably, my healthy hopelessness would probably, I just call cynicism. And I'm aware that the Lord sees me, he meets me where I'm at. But I'm aware that I'm in that place too often, and oftentimes don't know the way out.
Right. And so it is this, that with those people though too, that the prayer is, okay, you're not going to change on my watch. You're going to change on God's watch.
Yeah.
Because I ain't got nothing else for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've proven to me that change, no matter how much information I give, no matter how much data I give, no matter how much research or scripture I give, you're not going to change.
Yeah.
So I'll pray, and if you change, that's on God.
Yeah.
Because I'm hopeless in thinking that something else is going to come out of there with my help.
Mm-hmm. I think and this is where I just gotta let the Lord do it. But I think I struggle with the lack of a better term, both sides, because then I'm just telling myself, I'm like, I'm blind to some stuff too. Am I crazy? Which is, I know, a natural product of being gaslit.
Right.
But I also don't want to just enter into it. Man, if they just agreed with me, we'd be good. Because I don't want that to be the reason I'm in conversations. Sometimes I do. Like, I'll tell my wife sometimes after I have conversations with people who I disagree with, that I'm like, gosh, are they applying this same thing to me? And I guess it doesn't really matter, but I think oftentimes they are. They're like, oh, he's never, like, because if we're honest, Pastor JJ, there's some things that I'm just not, like, I'm not going to be convinced out of either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I am not going to be convinced that so many of the things that before anybody comes for me, way before he was killed, I'm not going to be convinced that those things I've seen for years from Charlie Kirk were not racist. It's not going to happen. So I think maybe I'm answering my own question, like, where can we agree to disagree? It's like, yeah, we can disagree on maybe some policy stuff, but we're not going to agree to disagree on issues of dignity and what is actually racist. Like, we have to call that stuff out. We don't need to be like, well, did he mean it, or was he actually deep down a really good guy? It's like, it doesn't matter. That's right there, it's plain as day. Like, that's between him and the Lord. That's where we can say, okay, that is between him and the Lord.
Right.
Thank God he probably knew him. But it's more just, I'm not going to be convinced out of calling something what it is, when it is so hurtful to so many people.
Yeah, then we got to be able to ask the question too now, with my psychological safety, is my psychological safety in jeopardy in the areas where we're agreeing to disagree?
Right. Bingo.
And that's where we make adjustments with boundaries. Because if you think, and this is a real example. I know someone I played basketball with for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we did. We went out to eat a few times. This was a white guy,
mm-hmm.
a little older than me. And we were in the gym one day, and somehow, the conversation was about why I relocated, why I moved from Christiansburg to Georgia, to Atlanta, to where I am now, Duluth. And he was like, well, why did y'all move? I said, I moved for my sons because we wanted more diversity for our sons. And he was like, well, you're not going to, it won't get much better than here. I was like, what? And then we started talking a little bit about some race stuff. And he said,
so he thought Christiansburg's diverse.
Yes.
Compared to Georgia.
He said white supremacy was a myth.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay. We just can stop now. because I started to get a little heated. And his son was with him, and his son was saying something, and I said something to his son. His son was a kid. I'm like, boy, you need to be quiet.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I said something else. But like,
yeah.
Here you are, a grown, full-grown man, and you said white supremacy is a myth. It's not real. Like, okay, then you must not. You really don't know me then, right? But we weren't like buddies or nothing. But I'm just saying, like, there's so many people that you can't convince.
Yeah.
Fixed mindset.
Do you think we're so polarized culturally, not just you and I was thinking about this the last couple weeks, to be honest, that we are just afraid of each other, like for different reasons? Like, I thought about this. I think people's in this conversation, more right conservative people, and specifically people that maybe were heralding Charlie Kirk as the hero of the faith. I thought about that because, I'm really thankful and proud of the church I go to here in the New River Valley. It's become it's a very safe place for me, psychological safety. It's become a place that I feel very safe in, not because everyone agrees with everything I believe, by no means, but psychological safety because of these things we're talking about. Like, okay, I know leadership, and I know obviously, and then we're pretty new, but for the most part, like I'm confident that I have reason to feel psychologically safe here. But then something like the big not uproar, but the processing and litigation of the legacy of Charlie Kirk happens for the last 2 weeks, and this is no real fault of anyone personal, like in my church or anything in the Christian circles, but statistically, having followed all these conversations and being part of them, I'm immediately just triggered. And even being in the place where I feel like very safe and loved and just feel like I'm in a good place. Statistically, I'm just naturally got my guard up. I'm a little more tense than usual being at church on Sundays. I'm like, I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, wait. And I'm starting to second guess a lot of stuff, like kind of unfairly even to people like I'm like that I would have no business thinking they thought one thing or another. But just that psychological safety thing, I just want people listening to understand, like statistically, half of y'all, maybe more in my head, I'm like, as far as like what Christians typically think statistically, like, man, y'all are on board with this stuff that this man spouted for his public witness. I don't know if time has passed. I don't actually think that is fully true, but some of it is. So I think about the fear and cynicism I walk around with, and I'm like, dang, is that what other people are thinking? You'll probably identify with this, but like, are the hats that I wear as like the race and justice guy in a lot of circles I'm in, like, do I call it like it? I don't know. Like, are people afraid of me or afraid to talk to me, or like, do I rub people and do people feel psychologically unsafe around me? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I battle with that. I'm like, what do we do with that? Like relationally, as we carry on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That's been going through my head. I've been ping ponging it around a little bit as I've been just going about my day. I'm like, what I don't want to do, I'm going to stand on things I'm going to stand on, but what I don't want to do is become that, like, an unapproachable person to have like well-meaning conversations. People that are gonna troll and be hateful, that's fine.
Yeah.
I can live without that.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, now let's go back to thinking Jesus, all right? Because I'm trying to center Jesus as much as I can, that the people that he had the biggest problem with were the religious, with church folks.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for us, I think especially people who are wired like you and I, who have the temperament, one of the spiritual temperaments of activists, is that people in church circles predominantly white people are going to have a hard time with our language and how we show up. Because remember, racially speaking, pun intended, race is central to everything in America. You remove race, the nation falls. I mean, that's just history. I mean,
yeah,
right. And so in that, when we say certain words, it triggers white folks because it's their people.
Right.
And so in that, we have to then, now you're talking about relationship. It's testing. It tests a lot of relationships because of this life we're choosing to live, and the language and the vein, the calling that we're choosing to embrace is a part of who we are. Like, not that we mince our words, but we do season our words with salt in a way that we can have relationships with people, be curious with others, be humble, demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit, but demonstrating the fruit in the Spirit where we don't jeopardize or where we don't minimize who Jesus was, is, and is to come.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So he irritated a lot of people, and he was divisive. I mean,
yeah, man, yeah.
So
I guess so much I've been processing. Even just, I don't want to go for a rabbit trail, but that.
No, I like it. It's good though.
No, I mean, even you saying, "Oh, he was divisive," like he got persecuted by the government. I mean, I've heard people say those last couple of weeks, like, "Well, that's what Charlie Kirk was doing." I'm like, that's not what the criticism is about. Anyway,
he wasn't criticized for preaching Jesus.
Yeah, or government pushback. Like that's not what the big criticism is.
He went and fought against college students.
Yeah, and I mean,
with no degree.
Right, and so so even what you just said, that's a good point. And I've had that conversation as well of like, now we're left with having to bring that stuff up to defend. Like, you just sounded like you took a condescending shot at him, but it's because of like his whole thing. I know we got to wrap up. Is like and I've talked about DEI ad nauseum on here, but it got brought up again these last 2 weeks a lot, and that's another thing he stood on is anti-DEI, and it was with this like elusive, like kind of painted in like the altruistic way of like, whoa, like of course DEI is bad because it's based on race, so it's racist. And he would gaslit
who benefited the most.
Yeah, he would gaslit black students and people of color, being like, "Oh, so we agree, right? Nothing should be based on race. Oh, so you're being racist because you think you should get these positions because of DEI." And he used to use it as his acronym was "didn't earn it." And I'm like, okay, none of us were going to go the condescending route, but here it is. Like, you have no degree. Y'all can go look this up. Like, a rich billionaire found you as a high schooler because he was too old to reach this nation anymore with the Christian nationalist point of view, the college students. He saw them slipping away into secular views, progressive views. And so he saw, hey, I'm going to give you money to start Turning Point, and you're going to be my guy. And he has no degree. And so I'm not one to talk down to anybody that doesn't have a degree. But if you're going to talk down to everyone else for not earning what they get, he is a walking example of that. And it's like, it's so frustrating because it's just like, y'all, like the math, what do they say? The math ain't mathin'. Like,
yeah,
I'm not the one wanting to be condescending here, but I'm not gonna be told I'm not gonna be told one thing is just literally the opposite is true. Like, you are doubting that Harvard grads are just affirmative action DEI hires and appointees, and you have no degree and were handed money to get your entire career as a high school student.
Exactly.
I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. To be fair, I'm getting a little hot. I just don't think people knew some of that, but
yeah,
I'd love for people to find out and not continue to explain it away. I'd wonder what you thought about any of the DEI stuff. I know we got to wrap up, but like that, I think that's relevant and big because the whole, it's a, what do you say to people that still are maintaining that DEI is just reverse racism?
Who benefited from DEI the most? White women.
What do you say? White women?
White women, yeah,
okay,
have benefited.
How's that
Statistically,
work?
it shows. Bro, I don't know. It's wild to me. But they benefited the most from DEI because they are women.
Yeah.
And so with that, also explain that the purpose of DEI was to help give people of color opportunities that they were just as qualified to get, but they weren't getting those opportunities because of the color of their skin. That's it.
Again, I try and concede as much as I can in these conversations. So what I've told a few people is, look, I'm not saying no one has ever applied DEI wrong. Like if someone is saying, you don't get this job, I need more black and brown people, and that's it, like no explanation, like all I'm doing is like, boom, person of color, you get the job, boom, like, oh, we got too many white people, you're out. Like, yeah, that's not what DEI is. Like, that's not what I want to happen across the board. Like, they shouldn't be sloppily applying DEI. DEI is exactly what you said. And it's exactly what it is by definition. Inclusive, diversity, and equity, giving opportunity that wasn't otherwise there because of actual racism. So it's not reverse racism. At least it should not be. And I guess we can end here. Like everyone has seen the clip or clips of Charlie Kirk talking about if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be worried because are they just a DEI hire? Yes.
Do you know you got to go through to become a pilot?
What do you think that they're just like that they're doing what I just said, like putting a random black person in a pilot seat and be like, good luck? Like it's just a fundamental, absolute misunderstanding, egregious of what DEI is. Like they go through the same training. Like imagine that. Like equity, inclusion. Like to think that is what it would be, and for somebody to, with their full chest, say that multiple times, and like really, I mean, the troubling thing to me is like seeing how I'm like, man, he really did believe that, like with his whole being. Like this is a wrong thing. Like, and with the same, it seemed like passion and emotion that I am against it. Like anyway, y'all, like please know how wrong that is. Okay, like please just know how wrong that is.
Go watch Red Tails.
I haven't seen it.
And tell me what you think about black pilots.
Yeah.
Came out in 2012. It's an older movie. Another one is Devotion.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah,
I heard of Red Tails.
Yeah, there's a couple of movies that talk about. You got the Tuskegee Airmen.
But they want to take them out of the Air Force education.
In a lot of these situations, y'all, it was black people who led the way.
Yeah,
for a lot of different. That's a whole nother episode, but
sure. Yeah. All right.
Boy.
Well, Mr. JJ, I appreciate you, as always, coming on here with the wealth of knowledge, sharing about faith, family, and justice. And I'm thankful that this keeps bringing us to each other. Of course, we try to stay in touch online too with stuff we're processing back and forth. But man, I greatly appreciate it. listeners. I know you appreciate Pastor JJ. And look, man, you just gotta keep coming back up on here, man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not gonna run out of material.
No. Always something.
One of my mentors used to say, "Hey, my entire goal is for." She was a professor, used to be a professor up here. She's like, "My entire goal is for I want to go out of business." Knowing full well she wasn't going. She was never going to go out of business. Right. Doing what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, just something good. Last little nugget thought. We're thinking about all of these different things, and I kind of just landing on. Again, just the heart of Jesus, but then also going back to not just thinking Luke 4:18-19, Jesus, proclaiming freedom for the oppressed, sight for the blind, and good news to the poor.
Yes, sir.
But then also Micah 6:8, for God's people, we're called to act justly, do justice,
love mercy, and walk humbly. Yeah.
I think we need to bring those into the picture and lead with that mindset. All people. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, what your denomination is. We can learn how to, I think, start conversations with the right thing. Thinking about the fruit of the Spirit. If we start with the right things, I think that a lot of these conversations and outcomes will be different.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I want to end on that. That was good. I appreciate you ending with that little nugget. You obviously be back, Pastor JJ. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us again. Just thank you as always for listening. It was good to be back with you guys. The music you're listening to is done by our guy Dylan Dent. Our artwork was created by Ashley Bush. Catch y'all next time. Peace.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand the pressure. The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. in my heart armory. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley.